Today's guest on Leave Your Mark is Lee Terbosic. He is a world-class magician and an entertainer. He's been seen on America's Got Talent, season 10. He's performed in Las Vegas. He's worked with the Discovery Channel on a TV series in the life and death of Harry Houdini. He is currently working on a live documentary with the BBC, and he is a COVID survivor and also a true blood Pittsburgher. Lee, thanks for being here today. I appreciate you coming by.
Hey, good to see you, man. Thank you for having me.
Hi there, and welcome. Now it's time for America's favorite podcast, Leave Your Mark, with your host, Vince Cortese.
If it's fly, loose fitted, it's Cortez. If freeze and chub is in it, it's Cortez.
Leave Your Mark is about inspiring the world, one guest at a time.
Pass the word from Brooklyn to Pittsburgh, from urban to suburb, it's Cortez, you heard?
And here is our host, Vince Cortese.
Well, there's so much here. I mean, yours is such a unique story that I like hearing that you found your calling when you were young. Because when people are younger and they get a quicker start on their passion in life, they make some serious tracks as they hit into their young adult life and then beyond. So what I want to do is just start here in your childhood back in Pittsburgh. Probably at the time you had mom and dad and two sisters, and you were in the Catholic school. Is at St. Albert Gallatin. And
St. Albert the Great, yeah, and I had one sister. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And now you are finding yourself being called to the profession of being a magician and an entertainer. So can you share with me that epiphany moment when life began to turn for you?
So that really probably started around my eighth birthday. I got in, like I said, I grew up in the city of Pittsburgh. One sister, two great, amazing parents. And it was the first time I saw magic live, right? I had gone to the local Hayes Moose, saw a magic show there. I remember being captivated by it. I also remember right around that time seeing, David Copperfield on television and just so I was getting a little bit of doses of magic here and there. But it was really when it all came to fruition for me, where the magic bug bit me. I was around 10 years old. I went to a birthday party. There was a magician at the birthday party. I was amazed by this magician. Came home and I remember the Hayes Moose. I remember seeing David Copperfield on television, and it was at this moment that I was like, I need to learn more. I need to know more about this. And my parents were amazing. They saw this as an opportunity to take me to the Carnegie Library and check out books on magic, which I did. So I go to the library, get these books, start reading, and that's where my journey into Hogwarts really begins. I'm really just, absorbing this information, because when you tell a kid he's got to read a book, normally he's not into it, right? Immediately turned up. But I really thought that these books held this secret information, a secret world. And I remember as a kid, when I was learning magic, taking the magic that I was learning out of these books, running down the steps and then doing it for my parents, right? And I remember those early days of when I would do it for my parents, and I would do it for my sister, and then I would do it for my, friends at school and my family, other family members. I remember feeling that it's a powerful thing when you can fool adults. And I was hypnotized by that idea of fooling adults, because it gave me that power. And that's really when that idea of being a magician really started to set in, that's what I was going to be.
Part of your parents taking you to the library and making you a student of the profession, and probably not in an intentional way student, but in a way of giving their child an opportunity to see where their interests lie. That was brilliant. And encouragement behind it. But
if that never happens, I'm probably not doing magic today. But there was a moment when I got really big, really into magic around my, 10, 11 years old. And I remember my mom telling me, hey, I have a cousin, like a third, fourth cousin named Robin that lives in New York City. And she said, maybe Robin will come to Pittsburgh for a holiday, because Robin has a really interesting, he's also into magic. And I was like, holy crap, like distant family member that's like a real magician. And so what happened was my mom invited Robin in for a holiday for Thanksgiving. He comes in, knows that I'm into magic, and kind of gives me that push. Helped me with what I was working on already. We would go. I would take him to the magic shop in Pittsburgh because I had already started going to the magic shop in Pittsburgh, the Cuckoo's Nest. So that was already playing a big part in it. And after Robin had, I had my moment with Robin and he had left, I still continued on this path. And before I knew it, mom was saying, hey, like, you could probably like get booked for birthday parties now, and I'm like, that idea of like someone wanting to hire me now was like now creeping in. Like I was around 12, 13 years old. And then that entrepreneurial persona starts to trickle in, it's like, oh my God, like I can go make money just doing card tricks, and that was what blew my mind. And so
you had two moments there that I think are very exciting. The first one was being a child and knowing that you could fool adults.
Yeah, hypnotizing.
Yeah, I don't know that there's I'm an adult and I get enjoyment out of that.
I know.
But so you're going and you're doing magic shows at the 7th and 8th grade level. Now, when you're going into the high school, because I think this is interesting because we talk to a lot of athletes on the Leave Your Mark also, and you find yourself in a crossroads here, and you're going to graduate from Baldwin High School. It's a choice of yours. You're a scholarship quality athlete.
As much as I was juggling the magic love, I was also into soccer, track, basketball. And I had told you that, when I grew up in the city, after graduating 8th grade, I had this opportunity, what high school did I want to go to? It was either City League, it was on to another Catholic grade high school, which I was not going to do, or it was on the Baldwin High School where a lot of my friends were going, which was Quad A. And so that was why I wanted to go to the Baldwin High School and graduate from there, is because I thought it gave me the best opportunity for sports down in college, but at the same time I was doing magic through high school, all the time. I was doing it at the track meets, I was doing it at the soccer, I was the headliner at the soccer banquets. I was using magic to meet girls, I would take the girls on the date.
Great idea.
Yeah, I would make the salt shaker disappear at dinner. I would never make it reappear, and then the girl, after the kiss goodnight, she goes into her home and she opens her purse, and inside is the salt shaker. I was always guaranteed a second date. So I was maximizing my unique talent as I was growing. But at the same time, through high school, I was performing at restaurants. I got really big into the restaurant world at one time I had 5 or 6 clients a week. So I was performing at 5 to 6 restaurants a week.
Oh wow, your full-time job at that point.
It was a full-time career. I was hitting the books during I was going to high school. After high school, I was doing track meets or track practice or soccer game, and then I was off to perform magic for 2 hours at a restaurant till 9 o'clock at night. And it was this constant, my first gig was Pizza Hut in Lincoln Place, Buttermilk Hollow Road. That was my first gig. And when I was 13, I started doing that when I was 13. So I ramped this all the way up through high school. And even in high school, I was now performing for corporate clients. Corporate clients were even paying me to come in and do magic for them.
Connect with us on LinkedIn. Be our friend on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram.
Whether jumping out the MP or jumping on the app.
You are listening to Vince Cortese. We just want you to leave your mark.
So I was building a business while I was in high school, right?
Yeah.
But it was this junction point at high school to college where the wheels could have came off for me. Because I then wanted to go into the military, because that was right around when 9/11, I graduated with 9/11.
That's another story too, because based on what you're saying here, the 9/11 happens, you're crossroad here with your soccer and your entertainment. And just, you mentioned before, a big influence of yours was Paul Gartner shows up at about this time. So you have three or four things going on of heavy influence.
Heavy influence. Paul Gartner, and one of the best magicians in the world, is from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And
well, we'll say two of them. You're from Pittsburgh.
Thank you, man. But Paul he's in another league, man. He is the king. Paul, I had heard about Paul Gartner when I was a kid. You know, when I was got into magic, I heard this amazing magician. We have one of the best in the world that lives right here in town. And I was like, okay, I got to see this guy. And here's what's great. The crazy thing about Pittsburgh is how small this city really is. And I remember telling my godmother that I'm a magician. You know, she knew I was a magician. And I told her about this magician that I had heard is like the mega star of magic in Pittsburgh and like, you know, has been on multiple television shows. And she goes, oh, I know Paul. And I went, oh my, you know Paul Gartner? And she said, oh yeah, I know Paul. And she goes, he's actually doing a show called 10 Fingers at the City Theater in like a few months. I saw it advertised. She goes, I'll take you. And I go, okay. And so my godmother and my parents, we all go to opening night to see Paul Gartner, 10 Fingers, City Theater. His opening act is Jim Crenn, actually introduces him, right? And I was blown away by Paul's performance. Unbelievable. I thought I was a hotshot little magician. I saw Paul Gartner and I realized I was a nobody. I then after the show go up to meet him, and that's when my godmother introduces Paul, and she says, "Hey, this is one of my old boyfriends." So she dated him in high school in the 70s.
Oh wow!
And so now I have this link to this mega, you know, amazing magician in Pittsburgh. And so she creates that link for me. And then I, throughout the years, build that relationship with him. And more or less, you know, over those years, he really helped guide me in my future in being a magician. Now, right at that moment of college, right? That was when I sat down with Paul and I told him, you know, my thoughts on going to the military and, you know, and GI Bills and all this
your
stuff.
military too. Just a quick backstory. And you said that your grandfather was a Marine. So that creates a very strong emotion.
Absolutely. Yeah. World War II veteran. So I had this idea of, you know, I remember him telling me war stories as a kid, you know, so it's like all these little things are trickling into my head at this moment, which is a very crucial point, I think, in everybody's life is at that 18, 19 years old range. And because what you do for those next few years really does set you up for the next 20 years in a way. And they said to me, they said, Lee, you're really good at magic. You know, you're working in all these restaurants. You're making really good money for an 18-year-old kid. They said, you're an amazing athlete. You got offers for, you know, for D1 scholarships. They said, what do you want to do? And I at that moment, I said, I want to go to the Marines, you know? And so Paul sits me down and he really says, Lee, he says, you really are an amazing magician. He goes, you really should reconsider, because I think you would be best served for your future if you really took on the understanding of what show business is. He really wanted to guide me into this entrepreneurial show business lane, and as well as the entertainment world. And so I was intrigued by that. And so that's why I ended up deciding ultimately to go to Robert Morris University to get a degree in business and marketing, all while I was still performing, because I had this show business bug, right?
Well, I think what's also interesting, sorry to interrupt, you mentioned that you turned down an athletic scholarship as well.
I was getting recruited, but at the same time, I knew I was never going to be a professional athlete, right? I'm never going to play. I don't think I'm ever going to the Olympics. I'm never playing in MLS. But this magic thing, I was really, really good at. And at a very young age, I have all this time put into it already. And it's already, in a way, turning into this little mini career.
Yeah.
And almost, and then the light bulb went off over my head. And I said, you know, instead of me going out and joining the Marines and getting this GI Bill, and I said, why don't I use magic as my way to pay for school? Why don't I put the hard work in, you know, pay my dues, but
great idea.
Get an education that also will set me up so that, because at this moment in time, I'm starting to think about like, well, what is life really like in your late 20s? What is life really like in your 30s? Like, what do I really want to be doing? You know? And at the end of the day, I was like, I want to be an entertainer. Like, I want to be Paul Gartner on television.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, and it was seeing his success and knowing that I could make that my success in my own way. And so that's why I really went into RMU with that mindset to use magic as my way to put myself through school, because I didn't want to do athletics. I didn't want to be an athlete in college. I just knew that it was too much. And I really just wanted to focus on the education, taking what I was learning and applying it to my art, and then art and business. And then once I got out of college, I was off to the races. I had a manager and an agent. And at that moment, I had all this knowledge of, how to run a business, marketing, and, having a great lawyer and, an accountant. And so I was really setting up the building blocks along those 4.5 years when I was in university to really give me the edge when I got out of school with what I was doing with magic.
Now you're out of college, and I find this interesting because with the television and your opportunities in front of you in the television, you would later experience in being America's Got Talent. You begin your climb.
That came out of the hustle of getting into the college world of doing shows on college campuses. That's how I really started to expand my business and the amount of shows and gigs I was turning out in a given, month or 6 months. Because we do, as entertainers, we have our hot and our cold seasons as well. And I was really starting to see that, and so I really went into the college market because I saw it as a really great way to get my name around the country. I knew it was a really amazing way to see the country because, as an entertainer, that's the ultimate joy, right? Is getting to use your art as a way to almost see the world for free, get paid on vacation in a way. So that's really, I dove into that lane pretty hard. I was going to these conferences around the country. I was performing and investing in my future, and I was getting booked, and I was getting, 30, 40 universities were booking me per semester. So when you put that out as a now you're building tours, and as you're touring, you don't even realize it, but you're building a fan base. And as you're building this fan base at these universities, these students eventually graduate college. And as they grow up, they remember you from coming to their college campus and performing for them. So it's a giant cycle of how to build that momentum, those blocks to build upon your career, to keep it actually just going. I think it's one of the most difficult things about being an entertainer. It's just constantly keeping it going.
Yeah.
You can sometimes get wrapped up in projects and you can let certain things slide. But, as a career goes, you want to constantly be, taking milestones upon milestones every few years if you can. And so when I was in these markets, I was getting these bigger shows. I was making more money. I was getting awards. Now I'm getting
your hard work here now begins to pay off because these blocks and what you've laid in the way of groundwork now, and the beauty of Pittsburgh being a small place, you wind up on KDKA TV.
So yes,
this triggers now you're becoming mainstream. And I had
the idea of wanting to start doing Pittsburgh shows, doing my own pop-up shows in theaters, just like I saw Paul Gartner do at that city theater show when I was a kid. And so that's what I did. I started to do something called four-walling, where I would rent out the theater. I had this marketing degree, right? I was like, I got to put it to use. So I'd rent out theaters in Pittsburgh, and I would put on shows, and I would sell the tickets and do the marketing. And it was through doing that where I would make TV connections in Pittsburgh, KDKA. Dave Crawley comes to a show. I have Rick Seebeck come into a show, doing a piece on me for his stuff. So it's like I'm starting to build this little, this Pittsburgh brand. And as I started to climb the ranks of, the college shows and the bigger corporate shows, I'm now starting to climb the ranks of doing public shows and getting my name out there in the Pittsburgh market. Now I'm becoming a regular on Pittsburgh Today Live. So it was at this moment that I dipped my toe into national television. And it was just right around when I was getting crazy doors open for me. I was performing, I was telling you, I did a show for Robbie Krieger of The Doors out in Los Angeles.
In Malibu, probably.
Yeah, it was in Malibu. And it was when I was there, it was a golf event. And I was hanging out in the green room with all the celebrities. So I'm hanging out. I'm doing magic for Johnny Depp. I'm doing magic for Gene Simmons. It's, you know, it's totally insane. And I'm thinking like, how am I in this room doing this stuff for these people? You know, I'm hanging out with Jack Black. I'm doing magic for Jack Black. Getting to know Jack on like a really, forming a friendship with him over magic, because so many celebrities are into the art of magic. They love it. They're all fans of the Magic Castle in Hollywood, which is a really like a mecca for magicians where we all kind of hang out when we're in LA. And it was right at this moment where like, I'm hanging out with Gene Simmons and in comes a camera crew that is following him around filming his TV series. So what they do, they filmed me for him and they used some of the footage in one of the episodes. So it's like now that
was on Family, Gene Simmons, Family Jewels.
Gene Simmons, Family Jewels. That was like the very first like moment where I had a reality show, you know, capturing what I was doing for a celebrity.
If you are listening from Australia, Florida, or just from around the corner,
from East Coast to West Coast outlets, if you're not into the dirty South straight, make a left about it.
Contact us. Leave your mark with your host, Vince Cortese.
That's kind of crazy because that's like a fate thing or a karma thing where you're putting in the paces and the work. You go out there and you're at a golf event and you wind up on TV on cable,
and I wound up on the same television show.
That's
it's
very
knowing how
exciting.
to use those moments. And so what I really did is like, you know, obviously I came home and once that show was out, I pressed it and then I was on to the next thing. And as these things started to build, you know, America's Got Talent was always one of those ones that was hitting me up. And to be honest with you, I had said no to AGT in the very beginning. And the reason why was in the magic community, we had gotten some like, you know, not bad information. We just got information that doing that show at that moment was not a great look, because how the show was being run, it was being run kind of in a way where they sometimes like to embarrass people. I mean, it's for the rating.
True.
And so you don't, when you sign your contracts, you really don't have control of who you are on television. And that's a scary thing.
Mm-hmm.
And at that moment, I had been saying no, and the AGT producers would, the first time I was really excited to even be considered. And then I really started to do my homework and that about if I should do the show or not. And that's when I found out at that moment I really shouldn't. But that had changed. And the dynamic of AGT, the arc on that show had changed. They went from being a quote unquote gong show, you know, if you remember the Gong Show.
Oh yeah.
And it became a show that really was changing people's lives. And so the year I decided to do it was season 10. But how the show works is you get booked in like a professional entertainer. There's a way around the line, right? Those open casting call auditions. They're all for cameras. None of the people that go through those things ever really get picked. The real way to get on that show is knowing producers and having private auditions. That's the real way those people get on those shows. And so when that time was happening, the season 9 was airing, and I was seeing how they were treating magic. So I then said to my agent, like, hey, sign me up. Let's make this happen for next season. But what happened was the magician goes on to win that season. So what that does is it sets me up for next season already being cast on it, that they're not going to let another magician that's win that show, win the season, essentially, right? So there's a little bit of manipulation in how contestants or how entertainers are on those shows. So once I've done AGT and had a little bit of hit of the PR that came with that, I was on to my other idea that I had been working on since 2010 called Houdini 100. And that was one of the most pivotal moments in my career.
Now, at this time, you performed in Vegas too. Were you on in Vegas before AGT or after?
I had gotten a chance to do some shows in Vegas before. I'd done some big corporate events and just played random places. So nothing too crazy. I wasn't, headlining in the Mirage, nothing like that, but definitely doing some shows in Vegas. But seeing, not only Las Vegas, but like performing in LA, getting these amazing opportunities to do shows in New York, and being in I've done a show in the top of the Sears Tower in Chicago, which is called the Willis Tower now. I was on for a corporate client. They, flew me out, private jet, and they bring you up. I mean, it's a party for 50 people. They run it out the entire top floor of the Willis Tower. I mean, it's like that was
That's
like
impressive.
the entire city of Chicago as my backdrop for a 30-minute show is like, wow. Like, that's wow.
No, that's hot. Now, you're moving on here where you find out that the legend of magic, Harry Houdini, has done his straitjacket routine hanging from a building, and this place happened to be in Pittsburgh, of all places.
Yes. So this moment is really the most, I would say, important moment in my career. I happen to be at this moment in 2010. I had been on the road with Paul Gartner, and I was his, his helper. I would help us set up his tech for his shows. I knew all the magic in his shows, so I'd set up some of the tricks. I was always helping him. And so he took me with him for a performance that he was doing in New York City, in Manhattan, for SAM, which is a Society of American Magicians. Now they have, it's an organization, and this organization in New York is the very first one, and it was actually created by Harry Houdini, and he was the very first president. So it's a very, New York and Houdini are very important in this moment. So I'm at this show with Paul, and it's after the show the next day when we're about to come back to Pittsburgh, and Paul says, "Hey, do you want to go see if we can find Harry Houdini's grave?" Now, I didn't even know Harry was buried in New York, right? I thought he was buried in Appleton, Wisconsin, because when Harry came over from Budapest, he ended up moving to Appleton, Wisconsin, and he made claim that was his home, that was where he was born and raised. When we figured out later on that he came over from Budapest when he was like 2. So when Paul says to me, "Hey, do you want to go find Harry?" We go to this little Jewish cemetery in Queens. And so we go and find Harry Houdini's grave, and we sit down and talk magic and history and Harry Houdini. And then later that day, we come back to Pittsburgh. Now, it's when we get back in Pittsburgh that Paul actually gives me a copy of this book. Now, this isn't the book he gave me. The one he gave me was the first edition. It's a giant coffee table book. It's beautiful. They only made 300 copies of them when they printed back in 2009. And so he happened to have a few. So when I got back to Pittsburgh with him, he gave me one of the copies as a gift, as a thank you. And later that night, while I was in my home, on my kitchen table, I opened up that book. Now, this is a smaller version of it, but I opened up that book, and I was able to find in the book the photo. I'm going to try to pull it up for you really quick. I found the photo of Harry Houdini doing the straitjacket escape in downtown Pittsburgh. So let me pull. Here it is, right here. So this is the actual photo, right there.
Oh wow.
Okay. Now on this building right here, it actually says the Pittsburgh Post.
Oh
right?
yeah, there it is.
And then in the corner, it's dated November 6, 1916. And so I see this image in that book that evening. And a moment came into my head that said, I'm going to recreate this on the 100th anniversary, right then and there. I knew what I was going to do. And so once I had the idea in my head, that little seed, it grew. Because I knew I had 6 years to accomplish this goal. Now you think about 6 years, that's a lot of time. To be honest with you, it came so quick. I couldn't believe how fast 6 years went on that project. So I started the early work on it, and as I went, I was chipping away of what this performance would be on this date. I wanted to do it on November 6, 2016. I wanted to do it at the exact same corner where Harry did it, Wood Street and Liberty Avenue in downtown Pittsburgh. So I recruited Rick Seebeck to help me find all these details. I figured out that he did it at exactly noon. And so I had all this information, and then I put it on my calendar on November 6, 2016. I knew that I would be hanging in downtown Pittsburgh in a straitjacket.
Upside down.
Upside down. So now as I lead up to this, there was a lot of work that was being done, from concept to, training to, figuring out how do I block all these streets downtown and bring a crane? How do I get a crane down? I was doing crane research one day. It's like all this stuff. But I'm figuring out all these things on my own. Now, as I get closer and closer to this big day, I'm building the buzz and building the marketing on it, so that now obviously I'm rolling the dice hard on the weather because it's an outside event, and I'm doing it for free.
And Pittsburgh's crazy.
So it's a little crazy, but that's what you got to be sometimes when you're going to do something like hanging upside down in a straitjacket. You got to be a little nuts. So essentially, that's what I did. I built that buzz, and then day of, it was a beautiful day. God shone down on me, gave me an amazing, beautiful day, and I had thousands of people show up. It got picked up by press all around the world. We had like 80,000 people watching live on Facebook. So it was really, really, really wild. And then shortly after that performance of Houdini 100, I then am now getting calls from Discovery Channel, and bigger networks are now reaching out to me, offering me, development deals. And so these development deals actually do come to fruition. I then signed with Discovery Channel to make a show called Houdini's Last Secrets, which was so cool because I got to replicate even more of Harry Houdini's tricks or his stunts. And I got to do this and see it around the world. I got to go to Budapest, Hungary. I got to perform in London. And also on the show, I had an incredible co-star. His name's George Hardeen. And the wild thing about George is he's the great grandnephew of Harry Houdini. So now I'm in the family. I'm filming this docu-series with a member of the Houdini family. I'm traveling around the world, and I'm going to museums where they have all this Houdini stuff under glass that you can't touch. But when you show up with a member of the family and a camera crew, they just take the stuff out and hand it to you. So now I'm getting this once in a lifetime experience to learn even more about Harry Houdini through Houdini's stuff. I'm reading his actual journals. I'm playing with the keys. I'm getting to, examine locks. And before I know it, once I'm done with the show, I'm back in Pittsburgh. I'm at this point, I had developed 52 Up Close, which was my hometown residency in Pittsburgh. I do it Hotel Monaco. I'm also now working with the Cultural Trust, creating a downtown magic only venue called Liberty Magic. So I helped build that thing, that performance venue. I have my performance venue at the hotel. All these things are rocking and rolling. I have a new television show that's is getting ready because we were looking at a season 2 of Houdini's Last Secrets. Then we transitioned to my own show, with Discovery, and all the way up to this moment. And then the pandemic hits. And
wow. Now touch on that, because I mentioned that in the intro that you're a COVID survivor. So
yeah.
At this point, starting out, what you said, 10, 12 years old, you've been a veteran of this about 2 decades now.
Yes.
So it's almost not surprising that you knew what to do with the camera crew and showing up as you do, because you're a wheel in motion. You're ready to go. If they're ready to make it happen, so are you. So everything's progressing. Television shows, you're getting calls now instead of seeking business, and the COVID hits you. And how does this affect what you're doing and what you turn into after surviving?
You know what? Interesting. It was going into COVID. Obviously, my 2019 was totally insane. I always say I'm one of the luckiest people in the world that I've gotten a chance to be a magician every single day of my life. I've never had quote unquote a real job, but when this became a career, it's not a 40-hour work week for me. This is literally every day, 365, every single day of the year for me. And that was one of the hard things about being a constant, this is all I do for a living, was because I was always on the road. And over time that beats you up, right? And because there's, you're always by yourself, and there's peaks and valleys with it. You're on stage.
Well, yours is also too. Your magic is you don't have the assistant in most.
I don't. No, I'm a solo.
You're a one-man show.
Yeah, and when you think about it, if almost every single day is travel, do a show for a couple hundred people or thousands of people, get this incredible high, then you're back at your hotel room by yourself. And then the next day you're traveling by yourself, and then the next day you're in a hotel by yourself. And it's another high back on stage, and it's a constant diss every day. And so over time, and the other thing I hate about it is I hated having to tell people that I couldn't make it to their wedding, I can't be there for that birthday. That, you know, that type of stuff. It's my career. My career always came first, you know, it was hard to separate the two. And so that obviously plays a really big point in my decision in 2016 or 2015. That was when I really came home and dedicated myself to Pittsburgh. That was because I knew Houdini 100 was coming up later that year. And then my dream was to build 52 up close at a hotel. And that's what came to fruition. And so I worked on 52 through 2017, 2018, 2019, also building Liberty Magic with Cultural Trust. And in 2019, I did 155 or 152, I think, public ticketed performances in Pittsburgh leading up to December.
Oh, wow.
I took December. I always take December off from public performances to only perform for corporate. So I'm now doing 30 to 35 corporate dates in the month of December alone. So I'm beating up my body, right? You know, I'm wearing myself out every day. I'm exhausted as an entertainer. I mean, I'm on stage, you do it, you get home, you sleep for a few hours, you're up, you're doing it all again. And that's every day during December almost. January hits and I'm sick as a dog on the couch for 3 straight weeks. And I chalked it up to probably getting the flu because of how many handshakes I do after shows, you know, a lot of photos, a lot of close, a lot of, you know, kissing babies and shaking hands is what magicians are doing. And so I'm now really sick in January, but I had during the year, I set up my year in chunks, and I had purposely built into my calendar in January to take the entire month off to write the next TV show that I was working on in the fall. And so I knew I needed a block of time in January to work on this. And so I'm now working on it, but I'm sick on the couch. And it was from being, you know, sick on the couch, I was learning about COVID well before anybody else knew about COVID. I was telling people about this crazy disease in China and how it's going to wreck our world. And everybody thought I was a lunatic at that moment. They ought to eat their words, by the way, but that's another thing. But as I got better, right, and I started to see the world, you know, then changing, you know, it was that March 13th date that really that Friday the 13th where it changed. And at that moment, I was supposed to begin filming my pilot for that new show for Discovery at the end of March in Texas. So, and I had, you know, all these live shows planned out through 2020. I had, you know, we were going to bring 52 up close back for 52 performances that spring. I was going to be back at Liberty Magic with 2 runs of 2 different shows. So, I mean, I had, you know, my year was booked till 2021. And to see that, you know, that all just come to a halt. And I saw it come to a halt a lot sooner than everybody else.
Oh yeah.
I started seeing dates ticking off my calendar in early February. Some people out there, some of these corporate clients, they kind of saw it. They saw the writing on the wall, and and as an entertainer, I was getting canceled for shows that like I have done 5 years in a row. And I'm this is now I'm putting 2 and 2 together. Like, I think something's going to happen big here, you know, and it was right in that moment. But yeah, the work that went into all these things to bring it all together throughout a year and to keep these trains on track is a lot of work throughout a year for a performer. But I love what I do, so I have no regrets. I'll be back. You know, we will be back stronger than ever when this opens back up full force. So, and I can't wait to be back on stage and you know, sharing magic with people.
Well, anybody who comes on this show, we ask them how would they like to leave their mark in this world, and it's that time for you. How would you like to be remembered? How
to be remembered? Well, I think just being remembered is the most coolest part, if you can be remembered. But if I had to pick something to be remembered by, I hope that I gave as much magic to the city of Pittsburgh and to the world as much as I could every single day that I've been on this earth. So since I got bit by the magic bug, I have been blessed to share magic with so many people around the world through so many different mediums, whether it's live on stage, in person, If I'm backstage and, doing a meet and greet, doing more magic for them then. Doing magic via virtual space, meeting thousands and thousands of people around the world, just doing virtual magic shows. Doing television and having my magic on television, inspire potentially, a future magician or just give somebody a smile for that day. That's why I do what I do. So I know that some days I may not love what I do, and I get caught up in the whole show business world, but I know that every time I crack a deck of cards and do a magic trick for somebody, I have the power to change their day, their mentality, even their life. And that's a really, really cool feeling and a really cool power.
If you have a story to share, tell us, how are you going to leave your mark? Contact us. Leave your mark with our host, Vince Cortese. Be our guest.
This is awesome. You get to live your passion, and you're still midstream of life. You got a lot of life ahead of you, so there's a lot more magic to go.
A lot more to
I
go.
know I didn't mention this. I'd like to ask you if you could do a virtual card trick for me now.
No problem, man. Yeah, I can do one. That's easy.
All right.
So here's what we're gonna do. This is really cool. Well, how about this? I'll start off by giving you a demonstration, right? I'm gonna give you a little demonstration, and I'm gonna do that with. I'll do that first with my cell phone, right?
Okay.
So and I have so I'm gonna do a trick with my cell phone here, and then I have a card. I'll use the jack, right? The jack. And I'm going to take my phone, and what I'm going to do, watch the card. I'm going to try to take the card, and I'm going to try to put it. So in the back of my phone, I have this little slit in the back of my phone, right? Watch the card, because watch, I can take the card, and if I put it through, you can see that it'll start to go through my phone. Now, you have to remember, you're watching this in the virtual space, right?
Right.
You're not here with me live. So you're seeing this through your screen. You can see that card is going all the way through that phone, right? That card is going all the way through that phone. I'm going to pull it all the way out. Now, remember what I said, you have to question everything you see. Let me explain. See, what I mean is you should really question everything you're visually watching right now. Even maybe if you could question the camera lens on my phone here. You see, what if I could just take this camera lens and I could just start to just peel it like this, and I could peel away the camera lens of my phone and just take it right off. And then what if the phone itself, the front of it, what if that was nothing more than just a piece of cardboard or paper, and the phone itself was made from a full block of Pittsburgh steel.
Oh, wow.
No,
There's
wow.
no slit in it.
There's nothing.
That's great.
Now, that is just to give you just a sense of what can be done when I'm constrained by these four walls. So let's take it from these four walls and into your mind. So right now, if I were to ask you to think of a playing card, your brain would go through a deck of cards and it would probably pick one pretty quickly. Now, sometimes what happens though is that our brains are trained to pick things that are common. So sometimes when I say that to women, they gravitate towards the Queen of Hearts. There's been studies done that have shown that when people are asked to think of a card, women, 80% of the time will choose that playing card. Then it scales down. Then it goes to the Ace of Spades, the King of Hearts, and so on and so on and so on. So now that you know that information, as a human being, you're programmed to sometimes think of the Ace of Spades or the King of Hearts, Queen of Hearts. So what I want you to do is I want you to think of any card you want, but make it completely random, right? Be a card that you didn't know that you would be thinking of today.
Okay,
Whenever
I got one.
Card,
I got one.
Name it for me.
7 of Hearts.
7 of Hearts. 7 of Hearts. Here's the interesting thing. Did you know you'd be thinking of the 7 of Hearts today?
No.
No. That means I couldn't know that you'd be thinking of the hearts today. 7 of Hearts today, right?
Right.
What if I could prove to you that throughout this conversation, I implanted the 7 of Hearts into your brain so that you would say that at this exact moment. And not only that, I could prove that with 100% accuracy.
Okay.
Pretty amazing. Would that be amazing?
Yeah.
So here's what I did. Before the show, I took a playing card out of a pack of cards. I signed the back of that card. I put that card reversed, face down, into a face-up deck of cards. And that deck of cards has been on camera this entire time. You see, it's exactly behind my head. You see it?
There. Oh,
That is a deck of cards.
Wow.
Now, I'm not going to do anything sneaky. Now, this is a box of cards. It's a shadow box. It has all the signed cards from all the celebrities I've performed, some of the celebrities I performed for over the years. But on top of it is I have a deck of cards, right? You said 7 of hearts. I said I reversed one card and signed the back of it, and it's inside this pack of cards. It's been on camera the entire time throughout this interview. I'm going to open up the deck of cards, and I'm going to show you that if I go through the cards, I'm going to go through nice and slow. There is one card amongst all the rest that I have my name written on. The card that was reversed that I have my name written on is your 7 of hearts.
That's good. That's good.
Thank you.
You just turned me into Howie Mandel and Howard Stern. Yeah. That's 5 stars. That's fantastic. Did you? And that was not scripted. Did you think, or did you know I was going to ask you to do a card trick for me today?
I didn't know, but I'm a Boy Scout. I'm always prepared.
I'll say that was sweet.
Yeah.
All right. You know what? We've got to get this on. I'm going to put this on YouTube.
Sure. Yeah, you can.
You may be my first video one because we've been working on it, and it's like as we're getting more and more episodes, getting more skilled at what we're doing. This is the video thing's inevitable. So that's something I definitely would like to put on. All right. Well, from one Croatian brother to another. Thank you for coming on, Lee. I appreciate your time so much.
Pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me, man. Yeah.
You're a joy to see somebody live their life's passion. It always feels good, and it's always inspiring. So keep doing it. You're representing yourself in Pittsburgh well, and we look forward to seeing what you come up with next.
I'm a Yinzer, so dude, I have all kind of big ideas coming in the future to the city of Pittsburgh. I'll be back as soon as this COVID stuff is done. I'll be back on stage in downtown and doing shows again. So look for that. Those who are tuning in and listening, you can go to 52upclose.com. You can go to leeterbosic.com. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, all those places, Facebook. But yeah, I plan to bring the shows back as soon as I can, and I'll be doing another Houdini 100-esque stunt in the near future as well.
Excellent.
So, and lots of TV to come too.
That's perfect. We'll see you soon. We're going to keep track, and we'll be watching you on the internet.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to Leave Your Mark today. Tune into our next episode of Leave Your Mark with Vince Cortese. Be blessed.
You just left your mark. Thanks for listening. Listen to more episodes on demand. Just click Leave Your Mark with Vince Cortese.